Today's sponsor is Casper Mattresses. They make obsessively engineered American-made mattresses at a shockingly fair price. And now you can get $50 off any mattress by going to casper.com/untitled and using offer code UNTITLED.
That's the name of this podcast.
Did you know that you spend a third of your life sleeping?
That's way too much time sleeping.
No, that's the right amount of time to sleep.
I guess so.
Yep, 24 hours in a day, 8 hours a day, and that math checks out. You should make sure that you're doing it on a good mattress. Casper brings two technologies together, latex foam, memory foam. You get better nights, brighter days, and they sink just the right amount, and they're good for other activities too.
Yeah, if you want to get a twin, it's $500, plus you can also get $50 off if you go to casper.com/untitled and use Untitled as the checkout code.
And if you want to get the big boy, the king size, $950 minus that $50, it's $900. You're not going to beat that deal. It's a great mattress. Well, thanks, Casper, for supporting Still Untitled.
On with the show.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
yourself.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, did you get desert sunglasses?
I have finally become the man with no eyes.
These are hypnotizing.
Aren't they incredible?
It's like Morpheus.
I don't have any idea what you're thinking right now.
Here's the and this is actually in the military. I have learned this, that it's disrespectful to carry on a conversation with sunglasses
It's
on.
really disconcerting.
And so I ask other folks, if we're having a production meeting out in the desert or something like that with Jamie and my producer, I beg them to take their glasses off because I can't get a bead on what anyone's thinking if they're wearing these.
For audio listeners.
For audio listeners, I'm wearing a pair of super mirrored sunglasses.
Yeah,
like 1970s Joe Don Baker, Billy Jack type sunglasses.
These make the mirrored sunglasses worn by Tom Cruise in, let's say Top Gun look like baby sunglasses.
They're CG.
And the thing is everyone knows I'm pale. I don't like the sun, and I spend an inordinate amount of time out in the sun. And because of that, I have a large collection of sunglasses.
Blue-eyed people
Yes.
have real problems with this.
And then these are a pair of sunglasses with the monofilament bottom. They're frameless.
Yeah.
And they had broken, and they had gone into a bin, and I hadn't seen them for a year and a half. And I finally found them, and one of the lenses was totally messed up. So I took them to the eyeglass place, and I was like, can you do prescription lenses with the mirrors? And they're like, well, they're going to take a few weeks. And I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
This is an investment.
This is totally an investment, and boy, was it worth it. I love these.
When you go to the
What's
eye
visibility
doctor,
like on the other side?
It's just green coated, so they're
okay.
anti-reflection.
it's like the normal Ray-Ban,
Yeah.
Everything's just a little bit darker, but no color shift, right?
No. And I think it's mostly just that darker. So they're terrible indoors.
When you go to the eye doctor and they're shining the really bright light in your eye, does he ever say, man, I bet your eyes are really blue. I bet this is really uncomfortable.
No, you apparently have a sadistic eye doctor.
He's a mean man.
These arrived the other day while I was gone, which is a shame because they weren't with me when I just got back from the other side of the world.
Literally. If we drilled a hole straight down,
we'd get somewhere in the Indian Ocean.
a few thousand miles away.
But yeah, I was on the Strait of Hormuz. I was in the amazing, very recent city of Abu Dhabi.
Wow.
Part of the United Arab Emirates.
Explain a recent city.
Well, the United Arab Emirates is also fairly recently minted country, as it were. It existed as a bunch of separate nation states. Dubai is included. And they discovered oil in the 70s. And before that, Abu Dhabi was a fishing village on the Strait of Hormuz. It was part of the British colonies, which means that they were, being totally screwed over.
Right.
And they discovered oil. They, not quite in rapid order, but they attained British independence, and a tremendous amount of wealth is there. I mean, it's heard a lot in the press that Dubai is this incredibly rich city. Abu Dhabi's right there. Very similar type of city. And
nonstop construction.
And by recent city, I mean, when I was born, this was a little desert town.
It was a place where nomadic people came and met.
Yeah, and now it's this giant metropolis full of some of the most remarkable architecture I have ever seen.
Like, I hear you when you think
Buildings
about
where
Dubai, you think about
cars can fly through one, and then through another, and through another one.
It feels like
Pretty
that.
amazing.
It feels a little like Blade Runner. Can I talk architecturally about it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, one of the things that they've been doing with their money is trying to build a genuine real metropolis, not a fake one. And they're spending tons of dough bringing radical and interesting and amazing architecture to the place. If I was an architecture student, I would absolutely be moving there because this is where they're willing to try radical things that are awesome.
Well,
It happens so quickly. It's
Yeah.
not like we're a metropolis of Europe and even in America where you have cities built on top of older cities, on
Right.
top of older cities. It's all happening at once.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's amazing to me because you're talking about these cities that are building up. Like normally when you talk about mega skyscrapers, it's someplace like Manhattan or Chicago where there's a limited amount of space to develop. And here we're talking about a place that's surrounded by infinite space almost.
Infinite space. And, they're building so furiously that a not insignificant percentage, I think it's like 10 or 15% of the world's cranes are in the UAE.
Wow.
And you see them everywhere. On our way to, so I was there doing a set of performances. The tourism board brought me there as part of what's called the Abu Dhabi Summer Festival. I was performing at the Do Arena on Yaz Island, right next to Ferrari World.
Oh, is Ferrari World like Disney World, but for Ferraris?
I believe so. I didn't get a chance to go there. Apparently, it started as the donated collection of one person who had a lot of Ferraris.
Wow.
I knew they were there because during my Friday and Saturday night performance, from the stage, I could hear constantly.
I wonder what tickets to Ferrari World cost.
$15.
Really?
Yeah.
Everybody gets a Ferrari?
I don't.
I'm there.
There's
I'll fly.
also a roller
You
coaster,
gotta drive
one
it
of the
back.
world's fastest. My crew went to Ferrari World. I did not. But on the drive out to the Do Arena every day, I passed things like a giant office building that was in the shape of effectively like a military canteen, right? Like a giant disc.
Like the old school World War I flat ones.
Yeah, just like a disc with flat sides. I passed these buildings, which we kept calling the pineapples. These two buildings in the shape of sort of cucumbers with these outer shell on them. Now, this outer shell is something you see a lot in the Middle East because you want light in your building, but you don't want direct sunlight. That's it's hard to chill a place when direct sunlight's shining into it. So this outer shell was sort of a lattice of triangles. Except the triangles were moving ceramic louvers that when the sun was in that direction, the louvers closed. And so these louvers changed which ones were open based on the sun's path through the course of the day.
This is one of the things that architecture aficionados have been talking about for years, where you have buildings that are smart and adapt themselves to the climate around them, whether it's weather in the Midwest of the United States, tornadoes and stuff like that, or incredibly hot conditions.
Well, and one of the places at the forefront of this is the Masdar Institute, which is as far as what I could see, a world-class university looking at alternative fuels, alternative energies, new industries. They're really so the sheikh that was in charge of Abu Dhabi as it was coming up, his name was Sheikh Zayed, and apparently one of his axioms was, what you can build with your two hands, no man can take away from you. And this is a real guiding axiom in Abu Dhabi and at the Masdar Institute, where they're really training, they're really building the intellectual capital of Abu Dhabi with a world-class science institute. They're building a city. It's, a long 20-year plan, but they're building a completely self-sustained green city. So they have a solar farm. They're experimenting with different types of solar farms, from the passive to the active to the heating of the sodium
the salt, the 4,000
and trying
degree salt
different
ones,
mediums to heat and stuff like that. They've oriented the buildings of the city so that they're in the direction of the prevailing winds, so you have breezeways. The buildings are close together but tall so that you can see sky, but you don't get direct sunlight down to the bottom.
Well, it's the benefit of designing a city from scratch rather than, like Norm said, building one city on the corpse of the one that came before.
Right. There's autonomous cars that drive you around.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah.
What was the experience of that like?
That was cool. There's like these little pods with 4 seats in them, and you go and get one. The doors open up. You get in. You push a button, and it takes you to another part of the institute.
Is it a golf cart?
It's not a golf cart. It's bigger than a golf cart. I'd say in size, it was roughly equivalent. You could stand up in it. So it was like about the height of a Sprinter.
Yeah.
If you cut a Sprinter in half, and it had 4 wheels and side opening doors and all glass, that's what it looked like.
Another benefit of designing a city from scratch. You can build in infrastructure.
Well, and so apparently in the infrastructure, they embedded magnets in the ground so that the cars always know where they are and stay on the path, but they also have motion detectors. So one of the women guiding me around was telling me, you can step out into the path of a car and it will stop a set distance from you. And if you move back, it'll also move with you. And basically it'll follow you like a dog if you can't stay on the track.
Wow.
We saw a lot of cool stuff.
This is okay. So you said it was a little bit like Blade Runner. You don't mean that in a dystopian sense. You mean in a it feels like you're in the future sense.
It does feel like you're in your future sense, but very specifically, I'm referring to one of the aesthetics that Sid Mead draws in a lot of the paintings he did of the Blade Runner, of the city in Blade Runner. He has buildings that have a smaller footprint than their actual buildings. So you have this footprint that's about 10 feet, 15, 20 feet smaller than the actual building will be. So on the first or second floor, it juts out.
There's a building in Seattle that does that. That's just hypnotized. I kind of just like to walk around it.
Well, most of the architecture that I could see in Abu Dhabi sort of followed that track. And that ended up feeling a lot like seeing Blade Runner. I will say August is not the season to go to Abu Dhabi. It was about 105 degrees Fahrenheit with about 70% humidity.
That's not too bad.
Humidity is the worst, though.
The humidity makes that bad.
Walk outside.
So have you ever been in a restaurant where you've got the heat lamp on and you stand up to put your coat on and you realize, I'm standing too close to the heater?
Yeah.
That's what it's like to be outdoors in Abu Dhabi right now.
So this reminds me of like summers in DC. My reference for that is that moment when you realize that you're standing right behind the exhaust of a big city bus.
That's exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
In New York hot summer
Yeah.
that is brutal and there's no breeze.
As opposed to like Arizona where it's 120 degrees and it's 0% humidity and you start sweating and it just immediately evaporates and all of your stuff is working really well.
Well, we just did 2 shoots in the high desert. One in eastern Oregon, where it was 99, and the other just 2 weeks ago in Mojave Desert, south of China Lake, southwest of Edwards, and it was 105.
Yeah.
But both of those were 0 humidity.
Stay in the shade, drink a lot of water, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
That humidity stuff, I mean, I was in DC, it was 95 and 90% humidity.
Yeah.
And you just kind of wanted to die the moment you walked outside.
Mostly you just started to just laugh about it.
Yeah.
On the first night we were there, we arrived at like 11 o'clock at night, and we had a day of doing some rehearsals. And on the first night, Julia found this place called, hold on, let me find this out. I know this is going to be thrilling to watch me research something on my phone.
Fact-checking ruins podcasts, I heard.
Does it really?
That's what everybody always says.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Everybody meaning the people listening to podcasts. If I remember, I'll edit this out, but I probably won't remember. I'll be perfectly honest.
We are going to the resort. Qasr Al Sarab Desert Resort. Now, apparently, they shot some of the new Star Wars film out here, and it's totally clear why. It's 2 hours. It's 200 kilometers south of Abu Dhabi, due south. So you're about 20 clicks from the Saudi border, in a place called the Empty Quadrant. I think it's one of the largest unbroken deserts in the world. It is amazing.
Just sand dunes?
Sand dunes. The sand dunes were so beautiful. I mean, I had never seen that real duny Middle Eastern sand. It was just incredible.
And you're driving among it, like on left and right side?
Yeah, you're just rode out in the middle of nowhere, and you're
in a Ferrari.
No. Camel farms, and you're seeing,
Was it to like drift over the road?
No.
Okay.
And then we got to Qasr Al Sarab Desert Resort, which is really one of the loveliest hotels I've ever seen. Again, like 10 years old.
Yeah.
Or I think we said, how long has it been here? And they said, more than 5 years.
It's old.
And we had asked our concierge to set us up with a reservation here. And I will tell you, I am very famous in the UAE. Just everyone seems to watch Mythbusters. It was very welcoming, and everyone was awesome. But clearly, the concierge had called the Qasr Al Sarab Hotel and said, "Extra special dinner for famous guy."
Wow!
And so when we got there, instead of having lovely dinner in the air-conditioned restaurant, they had basically set us up a table in the sand at the outskirts of the hotel.
Wow!
Oh, looking at the sunset. I mean, it was unfathomably
You're like Luke
gorgeous.
Skywalker watching the sunset on Tatooine.
Just gorgeous,
Oh,
right?
man.
And you just, all you need is a second sun, and yeah, you're on Tatooine.
If you look at the first sun long enough, you'll get the second sun.
And the dinner was beautiful. The dinner was fantastic. Middle Eastern fare, obviously, it was wonderful. But at a certain point, Julia turns to me, and like I said, I've had a lot of experience in heat. And she has not. And she was like, how do we survive this? And I'm like, you just have to give over to it.
Yeah. You're going to get real sweaty.
It's not, yeah, you do get sweaty, but even just sitting there, it's just sort of like you feels unbearable until you realize, oh, I can bear this. I'm not in danger. It's just, I just got to give over.
So for me, when I come, like moving to, I've been in San Francisco for 15 years now. And the first two or 3 years I was here, I thought, oh man, everybody's wusses. It's cold all the time. This is nice. But it's just like having air. But then you actually go back someplace that's warm, and you do it fairly regularly. So I'd say you probably don't get this effect. But there's a maybe day or two acclimatization period when you go someplace that's actually uncomfortably hot.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, I just want to sit inside and drink water all day. I'll see you.
Well, and let's be clear, like there's a difference between living in a hot city where you work in an air-conditioned office and doing what I do, which is go to a hot place and work outside all day. And really, you have to learn how to give over to the heat. It will slow you down, but it doesn't have to stop you. And as long as you're cool, as long as you're staying relatively okay about it.
And hydrated.
Do you find yourself like moving more slowly and stuff like that a little bit?
Yeah, totally.
You don't wear tight jeans.
Well, I always do. I'm an idiot that way.
Okay.
You drink lots and lots of water. Okay, but really the main question I want to know is, Norm, how did you survive a road trip with your family?
It was fantastic.
Really?
Mom and dad and two brothers.
No.
Girlfriend?
Just mom and dad and
Oh.
boyfriend.
Okay.
Brothers didn't go. Went to Calgary. Beautiful.
Drove
It was
from
really
here.
warm.
So
drove from here.
about
Went to
3,000
Portland.
miles in 10
Yeah,
days?
something like that. I mean, it was 3 days to Calgary and then 2 days back.
Oh, wow. 2 days back. That's
2
fast.
days back, 1 day to Salt Lake City from Calgary, and then Salt Lake
Whoa,
City.
You took the far eastern route.
Yeah, so I did a circle.
What route did you take up there? 5?
5.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you went
To keep it
past,
simple.
went past Shasta.
Yeah, Reading.
Did you go to Vancouver and then turn right?
Stopped 2 days in Vancouver and then just made a right, and the Canadian Rockies are beautiful.
So that means you
Yes.
drove through Whistler and like the Trans-Canadian Parkway or whatever that's called?
that's what I think it's like the one or something.
That's awesome.
One
We took
east.
these. We took our guys. You guys can't see it, but one of my sons is off camera here. We took these guys to Whistler, and we had a great time
It's
in the summer.
So
Summer
crazy,
Whistler is
so
amazing.
beautiful there, and the strong American dollar. Thank you for that.
Yeah, but you realize that the strong American dollar is because of the bad Canadian management of the government. The government of Canada. I'm not a big fan of the Prime Minister of Canada right now. He's a little too conservative for my taste, and I'm not Canadian, but
And
You have feelings. That's not going to
feelings.
stop
And,
you.
and
I
it's
have
really
feelings.
interesting because you think that, when we talk about Canadians, we think of them as affable people and politically leaning, a little more progressive, maybe. But when I was in Alberta's a big oil province, like Calgary. Everyone
It's
there
like a
works
shale
for big
fracking
oil
thing
companies,
too, right?
and they were like pissed off at Obama for vetoing
vetoing the Keystone pipeline.
for pipelines,
yeah.
and things like that. And I was there while the
Please don't think I'm trashing Canadians. They're,
Oh, no,
they're our
they're-
most
love
enthusiastic
Canada.
audiences for our stage show. I love Canada.
As a site, we have even employed Canadians before. We love Canadians. You guys are okay.
Okay. They also it's completely indifferent to our politics. They didn't even know the Republican primary was going on. I had to run out and find a.
It's not. It's like 8 months away.
well, the first
The
debate.
death march started
But
6 weeks ago.
They were like, oh yeah,
The Donald Trump kazoo band
Oh
is
my
going full
God.
blast.
It's so funny to go to a website like BuzzFeed or Huffington Post and get the Canada version. It's like filtered.
right.
I was like, this is where's the headline news?
Okay, most difficult moment while traveling with your parents and your lady friend.
yeah.
Parents snoring while they sleep.
In the car?
In the car.
Oh, I was going to say, you guys didn't share a room.
Yeah,
No,
it's
they're
that-
tiny
oh,
people.
holy shit.
And in the car, sleeping, snoring, it made it difficult to listen to audiobooks. That was the
Wow.
only
Did
problem.
you get like
Put
a poking
headphones in.
stick?
I was driving, so I didn't get the. headphones.
Jab them with your selfie stick.
Yeah, no.
Take your selfies and be like, hey.
The best part.
That's really the worst thing that happened?
That was the worst thing that happened.
Man, my parents are very different people.
Yeah. Everything was very nice. Took the quadcopter up there.
Yeah.
and did some nice flying. Looked up the rules and no one cares.
Did you fly
No
with
one
your parents?
cares.
No one-
Were they interested in that at all?
No, I mean, I did, most of the time we just went off.
We
on
had
our own.
more people messing up some wildfires with drones. Enough that DJI put out that email today.
Yes.
Flying within the flight path of Newark International Airport.
Ridiculous. Drone people with drones.
They're not listening to our podcast. The people who are doing this aren't listening to this.
Stop it.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends with drones to not be idiots.
Don't be idiots.
Really. Sorry.
I mean, obviously, it's just like in the States, illegal to fly within national parks. So in Banff, you couldn't fly.
Right.
But outside, where you can still see the beautiful mountains and fly over certain lakes, perfectly fine.
The thing I've always found in the Canadian Rockies is that like the human brain doesn't really can't cope with the scale of the mountains.
Yeah, you're driving right up alongside them, and it is. You think, oh, how tall could that be? And it is much taller than you think.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was fun to drive through, across Utah,
Yeah.
back. And
Well, I mean, I was astonished by Mount Shasta. We when we went to Whistler, we took 101 all the way up the coast, stopped in Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, and then Whistler, and then we took 5 back, so the eastern route back, and you can see Shasta for like hundreds of miles.
Oh, yeah.
It's astonishing. to me.
It's the thing that my wife said when we drove through Shasta the first time was like, man, California has some amazing stuff if Shasta is not the thing that everybody comes to in California. Right? Yosemite is pretty rad because everybody like Shasta's like, oh yeah, by the way, also up there you can go to Mount Shasta.
That was one of the things I didn't talk about the U2 flight. Is at one point my pilot goes, look down there, over there next to that's Mono Lake, and over there. That's Yellowstone, not Yellowstone.
Yosemite.
That's Yosemite. And I'm like, which Yosemite? It's like that thing that looks like a little ditch over there.
Wow.
So okay, I'm not going to say that, but we'll talk about it later. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Like growing up on the East Coast and then coming out here and seeing what mountains out here look
terrain,
like.
yeah.
It's like you suddenly have an understanding of what geological time, the difference in geological time between the Appalachians and the Sierras.
So where did you go, Will? You also
I went to visit my parents in Northern Virginia. So my wife and daughter went off about 2 weeks before I left. So I had 2 weeks of bachelor time in San Francisco.
How was that?
It was nice for like 3 days, and then I was kind of lonely and sad, and the dog kept laying by the door waiting for everybody to come home. And it was kind of
It feels
grumpy.
like such an admonition. It's like when Julia's out of town, I come home and the dogs run right past me at the door.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then like when I got there, instead of getting up in the morning and coming in to see both of us, which is what my daughter did prior to this trip, now she just goes straight to mom's side of the bed and goes, "Good morning, mom."
Good morning, favorite parent.
Right in the heart. But we were in Northern Virginia, or actually kind of Northern Virginia west of DC, in what's this really pastoral kind of farmland. It's horse and cow and pig country mostly. And my parents have a little farm there that they bought when they retired, and it's the place we talked about, the log cabin that they found inside the farmhouse. That's where that is, and we spent some time with them. But I got to go to the Air and Space Museum extension while I was in DC.
Oh,
So this is, I think of it as the new Air and Space Museum, but I think it's like 10 or 11 years old now.
Right.
It's at Dulles Airport. And like all the other Smithsonians, it's free. We were going to go down to the zoo and see the pandas, but the weather was not cooperative.
but you leave a donation, right? Or something like that.
There's options to leave donation. They have a lot of stuff that you can do inside the museum that usually helps fund it. But we all leave a donation every April.
Right.
It's because they're federal. In large part, I think they're federally supported or supported by as well as by several massive trusts
And Kickstarter.
And there's a Kickstarter, and they charge for parking. So parking was $15.
Yeah.
Which goes directly towards supporting the anyway.
So it was awesome. Was it awesome?
It's amazing. Like I've been to a bunch of airplane museums over there. I've been to Evergreen up on the Oregon coast. I've been to the Air and Space Museum a ton. I've been to Wright-Patterson in Dayton, Ohio. I've been to someplace in Savannah, Georgia. I can't remember what that one was. I have seen a lot of airplane museums.
Yeah.
This is we've been to the Intrepid. We've shot videos on the Intrepid.
Right.
All amazing space museums, airplane museums. They had the biggest hangar I've ever seen, filled with 3 or 4 layers of airplanes, depending on how you count them, ranging from dawn of flight. The thing I joked with my wife was that I said, look, this is the curator's nightmare, because they still have the real Air and Space Museum downtown with the priceless artifacts. Right. So it's like they have, the moon rocks and the Apollo 11 capsule and Gus Grissom's and John Glenn's Mercury capsules and all that kind of stuff is all down there. The original Wright brothers plane, the Spirit of St. Louis, the Bell X-1,
amazing.
The Voyager, the plane that Burt Rutan and I can't remember her name. The Scaled Composites team flew around the world in the early 90s. That stuff's all there. This is all the big stuff. So the Enola Gay, the
plane that dropped Fat Man and Little Boy on.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was just Fat Man.
Was it just Fat Man?
It was just the Hiroshima bomb, I think. Okay. I don't remember. I apologize. Then they also have a space shuttle, which we oh, by the way, like
when they were getting rid of them, you could have one for $20 million.
It turns out you just had to have a plan.
You just needed a way to get it there.
So they have 2 big rooms. One is all aircraft. They have a Concorde. They have an SR. The first thing you see when you walk in is an SR-71, and I mean,
wow.
I think flying in a U-2 is pretty cool.
But an SR-71.
Oh my God, that is the coolest airplane I've ever seen in my life.
That would be amazing.
DC to LA in an hour and 4 minutes. That's an okay way to travel.
Yeah.
Or LA to DC, rather. But
oh, right. Jesus Christ. An hour and 4 minutes.
Yeah. I had gotten off a plane 2 days before, and it took 5 hours.
Yeah.
So I was envious.
You could go for lunch.
Oh, yeah.
That's how the X-Men get around.
Are they just so high up they don't create a sonic boom that we can hear?
I think the air's probably thin enough that, I mean, they travel at Mach 3, but I'd say probably it dissipates by the time it gets to the ground. They had Cold War aircraft, they had World War I aircraft, they had pre-World War aircraft, they had interwar aircraft, they had World War II aircraft, they had, like I said, they had a 707 and just planes that are normally too big to have in that kind of museum.
In one hangar.
In one big hangar.
Wow.
And like I said, there are 3 layers deep. There's some that are on the floor, there's some that are hanging about 20 feet off the ground, and there's catwalks all through the place, so you can get to them at all different, so you can see them at eye level, no matter which height they're at. So it's not like you're just seeing the bottom of some of the like if you're like a P-41 fan, you can get up there and look it down on, you could look right into the bombardier's compartment on the Enola Gay. And it's all restored.
Insane. Speaking of this, by the way, we were watching episodes, the Matt LeBlanc BBC David Chase series on Showtime. And it's amazing. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. But there's a point in the 3rd season when Matt LeBlanc says, I'm thinking of getting a drone. And his friend says, what kind of stuff do you want to do with it? And he goes, drone shit. Look at the tops of birds. That's it. That is a brilliant joke.
Literally the first thing everybody does. You're like, hey, I see a bird over there.
Look at the tops of birds.
That's our Joey. But anyway, you go in the space room, which is another almost as big hangar. The centerpiece there is the Space Shuttle Discovery. There's off on the side. There's like the Close Encounters of the Third Kind model, the shooting model of the spaceship.
Of the ship.
It's like 5 feet around, 6 feet around. It's huge.
Okay, so that's right. There were 2 models made. One of them I worked on at ILM briefly, I think just wiring a light or 2 in it, that was this big. And so that was the really close shooting.
Yeah, this one was probably 4.5, 5 feet across.
It's one of the most beautiful models ILM ever built.
I mean, I was bummed because they had it behind glass. You couldn't take great photos and the glare was bad in there. They have tons of like spacesuits that are not, Neil Armstrong spacesuit, which there's a Kickstarter going for right now.
To reboot the suit?
Reboot the suit, exactly. But there were spacesuits that had been on the moon. There was stuff that has touched the moon with moon dust on it.
Well, I've been getting back into this because we just ran the video of Ryan Nagata and his amazing Apollo replicas and his Mercury replica. He and I are working on a little project together.
Cool.
Yeah, and we've just been trading our Everything's going on?
We're good.
Yeah.
We've been trading our information as both of us being serial obsessives and having large collections of stuff. We've been trading some information back and forth. So I've been re-inculcated with a lot of the NASA hardware.
And he's the one who made that Snoopy cap.
He made this beautiful Snoopy cap. I'm so proud to
it's so
have this
good.
in my collection. Yeah.
It doesn't really fit over your other headphones.
it doesn't
turns out.
really.
You look a little derpy.
Derpy.
But yeah, spacesuits. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's $15 to park. I think if you don't want to pay for parking, you can ride the bus from Dulles or something.
I'm totally going there. The Smithsonian is one of my favorite museums in the world. There was a congressman for years in the 70s who had a yearly Golden Fleece Awards of the most expensive and overpriced government projects. And he had a special award for the Smithsonian for coming in ahead of schedule and under budget.
I mean, it's an amazing, like it's one of my favorite things about going. I mean, I have family in DC, so I've gone from when I was a kid. I went to DC every summer for multiple weeks, and just the wealth of amazing stuff you can do. It's all the entry in the museums is free.
Yeah.
So you can go into the natural history, American history, the art museums, air and space, all of that stuff, and it's just, I mean, it's astounding. The zoo.
It is. And so it's like when you go to the National Gallery in London, when you walk in and you see Monets and Picassos, you realize that the ones you're seeing are the ones you grew up seeing in textbooks. Like they have, in many cases, the quintessential iconic example of that artist's work in their collection. And the Smithsonian, I walked into the Smithsonian the first time and was like, oh, there's the actual Spirit of St. Louis.
Right.
There's the Wright brothers plane. Holy shit.
There's Chuck Yeager's Bell X1.
Yeah.
It's not the one from the right stuff. No, it's the one. Like it's that stuff that's funny. I saw that as a kid. I understood what it was, but I didn't appreciate it. And
when you realize
they're
holding on to this heritage and keeping it. In one of my fantasies, in my dotage, I'll be doing scale models for the Smithsonian.
So this is the other thing that's amazing. So when I was a kid, I went to the Paul Garber facility, which was in Maryland. It was where they restored planes and spacecraft and artifacts before they put them on display in the museum. I don't know if that's still there. I assume it is. Now they're also doing restorations in a secondary hangar off of the spaceship hangar, and you could watch the people down there working. So there were people down there like working on the planes. You could see all that stuff. It's incredible. It's like it's so amazing to see that stuff working in process.
Totally.
I mean, I could have spent 2 days there. We have a 2-year-old, so we spent like 3 hours and then left. The only thing that pissed me off, the only food concession that they have is McDonald's.
Dude.
Weak.
Pack your own lunch.
Pack your own lunch. So if you're going to go, pack your lunch. I think that's
Make it a field
as
trip.
good a place
I
as
think
any.
that is as good. Yes, I think that is.
We will see you guys next week. Thank you all for watching.
Thanks. Hey, also, obviously, we'll talk more about Abu Dhabi. I have more things to tell about. And if anybody has any specific questions, go ahead and ask and address them in the next week's podcast.
And Norm has finished Seven Eves.
Oh, yes. We got to talk part 3 of Seven Eves.
Right.
We'll tack that on the end of next week's episode.
Oh, cool.
Okay. See you guys then.
Bye, guys.
Bye.